Today we will be talking about tax returns. So let's start with the basics. Basics is firstly, we're going to start with your filing status. So filing status is mainly going to be based off of whether you're single. This is the first one. Single is a basic one. Majority of people are single. So if you're single, you would file as single. Then we have married, filing jointly, married, filing separately, and then we have head of household. Married filing jointly is usually how married couples file. The reason for this mostly is they just want to do one tax return, get all their money together. The reason why somebody would file separately is let's say one of either the husband or the wife has a separate business, or for example, they don't want to pay the other person's taxes. Like for example, let's say the husband is the self-employed, right? Let's say he's a real estate agent or a mortgage broker where he gets paid commissions. In this case, he's gonna have to pay at the end of the year, as most people will do a Schedule C, or self-employed in this case. They have to file, and they're gonna have to pay their taxes. One of the main differences between people who are employed by a company, majority of people are employed by a company. When you receive a W-2, that defines, you're an employee of a company versus a 1099, which will determine that you're self-employed. So this is one of the steps in order to process, your tax return, because this will determine how much money you will be not taken out, but the government has a bracket where, depending on your marital status or the way you file on the tax return, they will give you a standard deduction of a defined amount, and this will be deducted from whatever income you bring in. So I have a form here. This is for 2023. Let me show you guys. So as you can see here, for 2022 and 2023, the tax brackets are going to be changing. So let's give you guys an example. We'll read one of them. Let's say majority of you guys are single, so we'll choose single. If you did not make over $10,275, the tax would have been $0 plus 10%. So you'd have gotten charged 10% of the $10,275. That's more or less how much you would have either taken out of your checks, from your W-2, or if you're self-employed, it would be a little bit more or less 15%. And then for this year, it will be the same, 10% for people who made under. But the valuation changes this year. For 2023, it's going to increase to $11,000. So it's no longer $10,275. This is the first step in filing your tax return. You have to figure out how you're going to be filing. Then we also have a head of household. The head of household is usually, on the rare occasion, let's say there was a married couple during the year. The husband died or the wife died, and they were left with the kids to take care of for the rest of the year. In this case, they could file as head of household, or on another occasion, it could be a single mother. She has children that she has to take care of. She, in this case, would be considered head of household. So these are some considerations to take into giving the filing status of head of household. For us as tax preparers, it's very important to determine this, because head of household has a completely different tax bracket and standard deduction in comparison to single people. Okay, next step would be your forms. What kind of forms are you going to be bringing in? Usually, as I mentioned, majority of people only have W-2. Most people are just employees for a big company. Say you work at a gym, you receive a W-2. And then there's also the occasional case where you're self-employed. Let's say you're a Uber driver, you would be receiving a 1099. That's the basis to start, just whatever you receive for employment. But also to take into consideration some things that people forget to bring in are, for example, let's say they receive unemployment during the year. They might think, I don't have to pay taxes for this. Well, you do. You have to. That's one of the forms you have to bring in. Or let's say you do gambling on FanDuel. Have to report that as well. If you made any gains on that, you're gonna have to bring the forms in. People think that, I won 10,000 on FanDuel, I don't have to report that. You do. You have to report that. So these are some situations where people forget to bring that in, or they won't tell their tax preparer, and then later tax return comes back and they're like, oh, I gotta pay this, that. Oh, I'm getting fined because I didn't report this. Well, this is why you have to be informed and bring in all the proper documentation on time so you receive the proper return. Another case, for especially for us as students, is a 1098-T. Let's say you're paying tuition out of pocket. You could be receiving money back for the money that you're taking out of your pocket to pay for your tuition. The government will give you some of that back. So that is also a very important thing to take into consideration. Then we also have childcare expenses. Let's say you have children and you pay somebody. This payment has to be official, as in the person who's taking care of the child has to be receiving a W-2 or a 1099 for this to be able to be reported. Cash payments do not count. So you can put on your tax return, oh, I paid my mom $500 a week to take care of the kids. That does not count. You can't write that off, unfortunately. And then there's other forms, such as, say you're a homeowner, you have a 1098, and you're paying mortgage interest. That is another very important form to bring in. And then what else do we have? Okay, yes, then we also have investment forms. Let's say you have money in the stock market. You also have to bring that in. So a 1099 INT, if you receive interest from a savings account, so you have your savings at Capital One, 5%, that income you do have to report to the IRS. What else do we have? Okay, investment forms, tax brackets. Okay, we spoke about tax brackets. Another thing to take into consideration with the tax brackets is depending on how much money you make, that will differentiate how much the government will tax you. So let's say we have, let's say you're making a good amount of money. Let's see. Okay, let's say you're making 95,350 through 182 and 100. You'll be taxed 24%. On top of that, you would automatically be paying 14,678 off the dot. So the 14,678 is automatic plus 24% of the amount over 95,350. In comparison, let's see somebody who is making less than 60,000, 12% only, and they would be paying 1,570 off the bat. So the changes are dramatic. This is one of the main reasons why a lot of people prefer cash transactions. Let's say they're selling a house, they want to sell the house, they'll request the buyer to pay in cash so they don't have to report all of the earnings. Or let's say delis, for example, big businesses, they receive a lot of cash. They basically get to report whatever they feel like. Let's say the company made 400,000 in a year. They really don't have to report all of that. They can report they made only 100,000. They can report a loss. Same thing with any side hustle that you have. You technically don't have to report that. Obviously, there's benefits to reporting because this will go to your Social Security income. So when you retire, it's gonna go towards you at the end of the day. And also, if you want to purchase a home, let's say you don't have all the funds to straight outright pay $800,000 for a house, or let's say $300,000 for an apartment, you're gonna need to go to a bank, right, and request a mortgage. So the bank is gonna request your tax returns. They're gonna ask you, how much did you make past 2 years? They see you made only let's see, you made only 30,000. That's it. They're gonna be like, sorry, we're not gonna be able to give you the funds. So this is one of the important things. This is one of the reasons why we do taxes. We have to pay the government. The government requests us to pay it, our fair share, and in return we get proof of our income, which we can use for other investment purposes. If you don't pay your taxes, you'll end up like Al Capone. Why did Al Capone go to jail? He didn't want to pay his taxes. He was making God knows how much, millions of dollars, and the IRS got him. So this is one of the importance behind filing your taxes. Then we also have other situations where you might have to do an amendment. Let's say you haven't done your tax return in 2-3 years. You do have the opportunity to go back. Obviously, you will be paying penalties on the taxes you haven't filed. So the earlier the better, in all honesty. But you can go back. There's other final occasions where, let's say, you're undocumented, you can get an ITIN, which is basically a social security number for you to be able to file your taxes. Once you file these taxes, you can start, accumulating. So you've done 5 to 10 years of taxes. You can go to an immigration lawyer, present them this information, show them I did such and such year, this much money, and then the immigration lawyer can use that towards a request to become a resident, and then later on potentially become a citizen. So taxes are very important, people. And just to throw myself in there, if you need any help, questions, consultations, you need have any doubts about your tax return, this is my business card here at ATAX South Ozone Park. You can contact me anytime you feel like. And we do offer $50 for each tax return. Let's say you send somebody in, one of your buddies, they do the taxes with us, I'll send you $50. And if you do our taxes, let's say you decide to do business with us, I will personally give you $50 at the end of the transaction. Hope this video was very informative to you. I hope you learned something, because in all honesty, this is one of the things that I wish they would teach us in school. Unfortunately, they're not really teaching this to the majority of people, and this is very important information that we need to teach the young, they're not kids, but young adults, so they can go on and become productive in their lives. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you.